spot, okay?
We are okay. Look like we're live. Welcome, everyone, um, to another amazing episode of Parent Power Hour. We are joined today with Delana Penn. Thank you so much for being here with us today, Delana. As normal, everyone, y'all know our the way that I roll and everything. When we jump in, we kind of get started, and I always ask some sort of a connection question or question just to get us rolling as I get us set up in the other rooms and all properly set up on Facebook and everything. So to get us started, because today is about SEL and all that stuff. I thought today a pretty good question for you, Delana, and then for others who are watching us is what is your best way for social interaction? What do you like to do for social interaction? So, Delana, if we could have you to tell us what it is that you like to do for social interaction, and then again, those who are watching us, please tell us as well as to uh what's your best way for social interaction.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me today, Tyrone. I would have to say it's like hanging with my friends, the typical, going out to dinner, being socially, COVID safe, and just sometimes I would say just like sitting at home, um, watching Netflix with my children. I think just relaxing and getting your mind straight because I think when we do things that we enjoy, we're in a better place emotionally and physically and mentally. And I think you have to do the things that really make you feel good inside and just learn how to say no to things that are out of your range of doing things. I think that's huge. As you can see, my background is passports, camera, sunglasses. Love to travel. It's really difficult now because we're back in the building, but at the end of the day, that's my happy space is traveling.
Okay. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for that and for sharing a couple of things that you said that I really, really love and that jumped out is and y'all, that's learning to say no. That is, I think, definitely important, but also definitely finding out and identifying what is, for you and that you like. And every y'all, sorry. Y'all, excuse me. Little here we go, little misfunction. Am I still okay? Here we go. Bam. Clearly, my bad. Um. So yeah. So for me, personally, I would say for me. So, oh gosh, I'm kind of the same. I think Delane. I definitely think that being with my getting with my friends and family, definitely being COVID safe is definitely where I like to be at socially, being able to just kick it, cut the bobo with my folks laughing. I love laughing and joking. As I've gotten older, I found better ways to joke without having to tear anyone down or, being mean and malicious to people. Because growing up for us, playing certain jokes and telling certain jokes that at that moment, we didn't realize the effect that it could have on people. You know what I'm saying? But now being older, you really think like, oh my God. And when I think about some of the things that I've said, it was horrible. So yeah, definitely she put it there. But one of our amazing friends who joined us, Miss Yvette Reed, gives you a great big hi, Mrs. Penn. It says welcome.
Hey there.
And others. So again, Miss Penn, Michael Cheney, join those of you all who have already jumped in and who are watching. Please definitely share the live. Let us know what you like to do for your social time and how do you create your social spaces and everything. Definitely share the live. Please comment any questions that you may have. Um, for Miss Delana Penn, or I guess y'all can ask me one question a day. That's it. But so that we could jump right in, Ms. Penn, we knew this year could mean a rough start. We knew that some kids experience trauma and a loss of learning. Since we knew this, what did we put in place prior to school to manage what we thought was going to happen when kids returned to school? You're on mute, Miss Pitt. You're still on mute.
Got it. I can only speak from my school and what I do know of the district and what I was involved in. I would have to say that we met with our families prior to coming back, to be able to discuss things that we would do. I have a really awesome principal, and she met with us all virtually to discuss the different techniques, like, how we would be COVID safe, number one. That was like huge. How we would be able to, we are at SEL school, so we are a social emotional learning school, and we are 2 buildings, so we have the opportunity to have a social emotional team member in the middle school and also one in the high school. And they send out every Monday different things that we can do to be able to cope with the week and cope with our students, and to be able to interact appropriately and effectively with our students. So that was shared. We also put a lot of things in place, like I am the bullying coordinator at my school. Now we have advisory. So some of our team has, one of our teachers has developed different lesson plans to give teachers to assist them while they're in those activities. We also made initiatives like to be more proactive. Like we did a big fundraiser for breast cancer awareness. We raised, like, I think Ms. Bailey raised like $420. We're right now, this month is Alzheimer's. So we are actually having on Wednesday, the Ken Dream Foundation is coming to our school to educate our students, like 4 classes on the points of Alzheimer's, because we see kids are at home and they're seeing different things that are going on. So we want to give them the signs, how to recognize Alzheimer's. And then we're doing an Alzheimer's. This will be our 6th annual, actually moving to 6 years. I work with the Can Dream Foundation, and we're doing a paint and punch. So our goal was basically to do events and do lesson plans and different things around social emotional awareness. Also, we implemented like the 3 R's thing that the district gave us, where the whole restore, reimagine, all that good stuff, right? We've done like pastries with people who care, so where parents can come in and have pastries and talk about issues, meet the principal, share concerns. So we're doing a lot of family community engagement things as well. And these are just like things that make us be in the happy place, right? So that we're all on the same page to cut down confusion. So I think that when we put these things together, it may not seem like a lot, but it's at the point where we're really trying to do like restorative practices, talk to kids, try to prevent fights. We see our kids coming back now with a lot of trauma. As you said, they've been at home, they have a loss of learning. So you've been able to like run free, and now you have to come back to, these classrooms that, have responsibilities. You have responsibilities now, you have parameters, you can't step over. So we're trying to ask them to do something they haven't done in like 18 months. And so I think when we say we put these things in place, are they working? Yes, some work, some doesn't, but the goal is that they're there, right? The supports are there. We have the privilege to have 2 social workers at our school and 1 school psychologist. And then we have a lot of partnerships with like CNC advocacy and different, individuals that come into our building to provide services, Concentric, with home visits. We put a lot of steps in place to, for attendance, all of these parameters that we have for our students. I don't know, I can only speak for my school. I can't speak for other schools as to what's been put in place.
Okay, no problem. Thank you. So I jumped with that question. I was ready to get in there. So for those of us, and I know a lot of people do know, but those who don't, how would you, Ms. Penn, describe what social emotional learning is? Just to give, kind of an overview and a clear description to maybe some parents or some folks who may not actually know or understand the term.
I'm going to say what we do know about like social emotional learnings. And I think it's a skill set, and it allows you to be able to focus on student success. That's how I see it personally, not only just this, but in life. And it's a mindset to me. It's like, if you take it and run with it, you do great. If you don't, sometimes, you need a little extra, it's that extra love. You know what I'm saying? We say air hugs now because it's COVID, but it's like air hug effect. You know what I'm saying? But not everyone knows how to explicitly teach these skills, right? Because we have to have training. And so the district has done a pretty good job at, giving you the skills, you know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? But not necessarily maybe the implementation of the skills, but giving you the skills, right? And I think there's too many things that you kind of put, in that. It's like we can tell you and we can give you like the daily lessons, I had the opportunity to teach a student wholeness class last year, as well as I'm teaching the same class right now. And we have a lot of teachers, who don't have like every day you come in, you do a morning drill, right? What does the drill look like? You know what I mean? How do what are adult SEL moments? You know what I'm saying? Like when you have a staff meeting, those types of things, right? So we talk
Mm-hmm.
about what it is and what it looks like and how to implement it. I think all of that goes into how to get to the bottom line of student success, right? I think there are some practical activities that support social emotional learning at home. I think it's not just at
Okay.
school, but it's also at home, right? And so I think when you provide these services in schools, you also need to provide the same services and the same skill set for parents at home, because we have a lot of families and a lot of are no longer employed. You know what I'm saying? They've had to. It's definitely the trickle down effect. You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, you have people have lost their jobs. People have had deaths in their families. We have a lot of students that are coming to the building with trauma. They already had trauma, but the trauma is still there and very present. And so we're trying to give them this skill set to be able to better understand and cope, the coping mechanisms that they need. And so you see the anger in students because you haven't effectively dealt with the trauma, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so the aggression is coming out different ways, maybe through fights in the building, what I'm saying, maybe through just not coming to school. I think that sometimes, we have these expectations of students. I know attendance is down in all schools throughout the district. But at the end of the day, we had maybe some, as a district, some unrealistic expectations of students. Um, I think that we can all say what we would have, could have, should have done if we were in that situation, right? That
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean that that's what's going to happen or that is what is happening. But at the end of the day, to me, when you say social emotional learning, it's that extra set of arms around you with the air hug, saying, hey, we love you, we want the best for you, right? But I think at the same time, as teachers, you already are the mom, you're the aunt, you know what I'm saying? You're the grandmother in some cases, you know what I'm saying? You're the sister, the cousin.
Mm-hmm.
You already take on these roles and you're taking, so you have your own set of trauma, right? And I don't think we see it as trauma. We see it as being awesome teachers or teachers who are
Mm-hmm.
able to meet our students where they are. But the end game is this, is that we're tired too, right? And so when you look at your level of tired, so you're dealing with all these traumas and you're coming home and you're dealing with your own, whatever you have going on in your own personal home. It's a lot,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I'm saying? And sometimes you just can't get that air hug from your family because you're sharing everything that's happened throughout their day, you know what I'm saying? And you're bringing it home because you don't stop grading papers, you know what I'm saying? You don't stop lesson planning because these are requirements. And you do see a lot of things that are now required that are new. And I don't know if, I've been in the district for, many, many years, you know what I'm saying? And I think that at the end of the day, the expectations are very overwhelming, right? And so your mindset is not geared to take on all of the extra, right? So you have people that are getting COVID. Some of our buildings are not necessarily maybe the safest they could be, in whatever way that is going.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I think that you have to wrap your mind. It's a lot of stress that you think that you could take this home to your families, right? And it's the same way
Mm-hmm.
when you're in the street. So you just do your best to be safe in this time that we're in. But I think we have to take all of that and the trauma as teachers. And we are experiencing our own set of trauma or trauma situations, you know what I mean? And it's hard for us as
Absolutely.
well. So we went from being heroes to we didn't want to teach and be positive people. So you have like social media, you have the news. So it kind of like did a 360. First we were heroes, you know what I'm saying? And then when we didn't want to come back to school and die off, go figure, you know what I'm saying? Then we became like the villain, you know what I'm saying? So it's like you're dealing with that. You know what I mean? That's why, I stay away from TV. You talk about what do I do? Stay away from TV, stay away from the news, stay away from so much social media, because that way I'm not ingesting all of that into my day, into my week, into my month, into my classroom. It's just
Gotcha.
like being the best that you can be. In order to be the best that you can be, you have to learn how to process all of that information that you're getting and all of the trauma that you're getting on a daily basis.
Got you. So now with the preparation that, as you mentioned, you could talk about what you all done at your school and
Mhm.
what's happened at your school. So the preparation that you all did before school started up, to prepare for school and what the trauma and things that kids might have been facing and all of those things. What's been different than what you all have expected?
I would say like the regular COVID testing. Um, we are very, fortunate to have a person that is COVID trained at our school to do the testing. I mean, that's a plus, you know what I'm saying? I would say we're also very fortunate to have long-term subs that come to work when teachers are out that can, take over those classes that we don't have positions. Um, we're very fortunate to have an awesome SEL team at our school. We also have a community liaison at our school too. A community site coordinator. I think that's what this position is, a community site coordinator that helps work with families and engage families and gets the information out. We also have a Facebook page at our school, which provides ongoing updates, things that are occurring at our school. You know what I mean? I think that um, I think the end game is just what are we doing that's best for students and staff and families. I think I would have to say that piece of it. You know what I'm saying? Can things be better? Absolutely. Can they be better at everybody else's school? Absolutely. You know what I mean? But a principal can only do what they have the tools to do, and that they have the limits, because everybody has a boss, right? And you got to understand that, right? And there's guidelines. So it's like everything is a trickle down effect, right? And I don't think
Right.
sometimes we get that. We can complain, 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 but at the end of the day, it's not all coming from our admin team. You know what I mean? They have bosses too, and I think that we have to look at that as well. But I'm just very fortunate to be at my school and have the principal that I have. You know what I mean?
Awesome. Right.
Who's
Yep.
understanding.
Got you. Got you. So, what would you say is the range of student SEL issues that you are seeing this school year?
I would have to say from acting out in the classroom to fighting. I would say that's the range. I mean, I would place attendance in there as well. I would say attendance concerns. Um, Sometimes I don't know, like you want them to come to school, but like, is it better if they got to come and act crazy at school? Is that like necessarily the best thing? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like, but
Mm-hmm.
I think attendance and people really are fearful. I mean, we can say whatever we want, right? But at the end of the day, people fear COVID and they're fearful. Their parents care about their kids and they want them to be safe. And you got to understand, a lot of our homes are multi-generational. You know what I mean? And so when you understand that, you have your grandmother there, possibly your great grandmother, you have an aunt who may have lost her job or uncle who may have lost their job. Our homes are multi-generational. So if that child comes back right into the home, you look at it like you can kill off two generations of family members. So you have to
Yep.
look at it from that. And I know that there's been people ongoing talking about that, but it's real. And I think that we see that within attendance. For a number of reasons. I'm just saying that's one. We have a lot of families that the kids now, their McDonald's job was paying the bills so the lights stay on. You know what I
Right.
mean? And
Right.
you think about,
Mm-hmm.
it's funny because we were having a conversation with one of my mentors, and it'd be awesome because the majority of our students, when you call them and you're making these calls home and home visits, they're like, I work at Amazon. It would be awesome if Amazon like said, okay, I'm gonna have this school where you come here, you're already here, we have daycare for you. You can go to school here and then leave here and go to work, and your child's in daycare, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's like the dream, like, you know what I mean? Like, yes, and I know just the principal for that school. But I think that would be really awesome if you could have those companies that are saying, you know what, we know you really shouldn't be here. We know you really should be in school, and making that
Mm-hmm.
happen, or not giving you
Mm-hmm.
those hours. I think there's a lot of things that, Tyrone, we talk about it, that can happen or occur, but it's what can we do? You know what I'm saying? And you only have so much power and so much leverage as a teacher.
Okay, so you mentioned a lot of issues and things that SEL issues that you're seeing this year. How are teachers and staff managing these issues? How would you describe teachers and staff managing these issues. It's a lot. Also, just keeping in mind that she mentioned earlier that, educators do have to go home to their own families and deal with this stuff. And I know it's a lot, but, could you give a little more so that I think it's important for, parents and others to really, get that picture, what I'm saying, to see that picture that, yes, this is my job and, I love what I'm doing. I want to help out, students and families and stuff. But the reality is that I still have my own family. I still have my own life. I still have things, my own things that I'm gonna shut up and let you go ahead and tell us.
I definitely understand. I would have to say we have conversations.
Mhm.
We also, have leads at our school that help new teachers with supports. We have a new teacher, I would call it a PLC, a professional learning community, where
Okay.
we meet with all the new teachers from 1 to 3 years and provide supports. I think that happens at my school. Can I say it happens at all schools? No. Um, our IOT meets, our instructional leadership team meets to discuss, you know, upcoming things that are, we can do to support and that leadership can do to support us. You come together to discuss the data. Data is really huge.
Mhm.
That's a lot of our evaluations, you know what I mean? A lot of our raises. Basically, let's go to the bottom line. That almighty dollar that, you get for a raise is affected by data, right? How do we deal with data? How do we track data? How are we accountable for data? All those things are discussed. I think that that's important because you got to think if you're not producing, you know what I mean? How do you, you know, move forward financially, you know what I'm saying, in this career. I think just being able to have like the conversations and it being welcomed and open to be able to
Mhm.
have the conversations makes a huge difference. Like I do a lot of grant writing at my school, and I see that the things that are needed, like like the arts, trying to, like, right now my life skills students are writing a play with representatives from center stage, you know what I mean, like trying to
Amazing.
act it out, you know what I'm saying.
Mhm.
We have a partnership with James Hart with the Maryland Opera, where we have someone coming in to sing to about 6 classrooms, lift every voice and sing through opera, you know what I mean. So right now we have Roots Branch Media teaching our kids how to do media production. So these are like grants through Arts Every Day, things that I write, to give our kids. Maybe you have that feel good moment, you know what I'm saying? And this is something that can change mindsets and change your life and maybe determine how you're going to college or how you may not go to college. But at the end of the day, it's something that you may do in your next life after graduation, right? So I think that you have to put things in place and have conversations. And it makes us better as teachers, makes our students better, because in the process of doing all these things, you're changing student mindsets and teacher mindsets, right? If you feel supported, then you come to work, right? People call out when you're not supported, right?
Mhm.
Or when it becomes too much and you have no one to go to or you don't feel heard. We see it out the district, which is why our CEO came out with our wellness days, right? Because you have a lot going on and there's a lot of expectations, right? And some of them are not just because they want to give you. Every dollar that you get, whether it's state or federal, is tied to something, and you have to produce something, right? And sometimes we don't see that because we just look at in our teacher box, lesson plans. We got to do
Mhm.
this, we got to do that. But sometimes these things that we're doing are tied to the dollar that we're getting to support the schools. And I think sometimes we overlook that, and that's critical and huge. So there's a lot of things I don't want to do as a teacher, but I have to, right? Because you don't the you still need a job at the end of the day, right? Or you still desire a job. And so it's about how you put those things down and, and get to the nitty gritty and do them. And I just think that that's, I don't know if I answered your question completely, but I
Mhm.
think that you have to look at it's bigger than just that question. You know what I mean?
Right. You,
That
you you
mindset is
definitely
huge.
answered it partially. It was you answered it some and then elaborated on some others. I was
Mhm.
just asking how our teachers and staff, managing the issues that you mentioned that they are receiving. I mean that students are showing up with. I want to jump to comment that we have. The fear of COVID is real. I had a scholar who just returned to school after being out since week 2 of September due to her family's fear of COVID. I'm grateful that we have had 0 positive COVID cases in my class, and I think less than 20 in our school. That's absolutely amazing at the amount of cases that you've had. I've seen
Absolutely.
it different all over. So
Yes.
great for that. And then definitely with the students, the fear of COVID is real. And I would say personally, I've been hearing from others and seeing definitely the attendance now has been, I can speak of that personally because it's been with my kid as well. I'm one of them. I am not going to jeopardize anyone else if my kid is not feeling well with sending them to school. I rather,
Mhm.
even it could definitely be allergies or sinuses, something, but we're going to go and find out and make sure before you go to school. So I would rather you be home for that day and miss that day of school or whatever versus going and possibly getting someone else sick,
Mhm.
or having your immune system open to get anything. And it's a lot with
But the
dealing
reverse
with it.
of that too is we have a lot of families, who have to go to work. And even before COVID, we had parents that sent their kids to school sick, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, like that has always been there. Whether you keep them home or whether you send them, it's always been there. And I think that's a lot of teachers' fears that you were sending them prior to COVID, and now you're still sending them. You know what I'm saying? There might be something wrong. I mean, so you have to
Yeah.
see, to every coin there's two sides, right? And I get it, right? But then we have things where you have to come by 12 o'clock. I've heard, people say, well, you have to get here by 12 o'clock. You know what I mean? Somebody can't just leave their job to come by 12 o'clock and then you telling you calling CPS if they're not here. I mean, and some people don't drive. Like, do you know your families? Are you addressing the families that, we
Yeah.
don't want to die. Granted, I'm not trying to die, right? But you have to have some standard of care, right? At the bottom line is a standard of care. And sometimes I think we don't always have that standard of care. And it's how do you maintain that continuous standard of care and look at the, it's not, we talk about shapes, I'm saying, like it's black and white, but there is a gray area to everything that we do. And everything is just not black and white, and everything's just not, a full circle. There are some
Yeah.
some edges. And so I
Yeah.
think you have to take that in mind as well. And things that were happening pre-COVID. And some of those things are still happening, what I'm saying, with COVID. And I can't even say post-COVID because we're
Yeah.
still rolling up
We're
in
still
it. You
in
know
it.
what I'm
Yeah.
saying? We're
Absolutely.
still in a
Absolutely.
pandemic. So I'm
Right.
just saying you have to look at it like, and people don't want to die. Go figure. Like, I don't want to come to work and die. Like, it's not personal. You know what I'm saying? But my life is just as important. You know what I'm saying? As
Yep.
we talk
As
about
everyone else
lives.
is. Yep.
Exactly. And so I
Yep.
feel like, why put myself in the throes? It's like kind of like how people were working at Walmart and a lot of them got sick over COVID, but we didn't have nowhere else to go, right? So there's a lot of, and you got to think, a lot of those parents and a lot of those kids, guess what? They go to our schools. And those are our families that we deal with every day, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they were like providing us, we could go to Walmart and we didn't think anything of going to Walmart, right? But how do you think they felt? They felt the same way that some of us feel now, right?
Yep.
So as long as the shoe is on the other foot, we look a different way, right? But now the shoe is on our foot, right? And we're sitting in these little and I think the biggest thing is we're sitting in classrooms that are not, maybe not safe in all accounts. And buildings are older. We have new buildings, we have old buildings, right? So, but just have that standard of care that things are really happening, that you really have air floating, that the windows really do open. We have schools where the windows aren't opening. We can say whatever we want. The real is the
Yeah.
facts. You know what I'm saying?
It
It
is a
is what
lot.
it is.
Absolutely. Let me read Ms. Upwards' comments. Students seem to have a lower threshold and tolerance for interacting with each other and as stressors. After a certain amount of time together, they seem more irritated by each other's behavior and constant expectation. Different expectations for different teachers for hours at a time, which then leads to them trying to navigate conflicts. And we all know that the teen brain is more equipped to react emotionally than logically. That part of their brains just isn't fully developed yet. And it's way more evident now. Overall, students are really having difficulty with identifying, naming, and coping with various feelings and stresses and are reacting quicker and more often. Thank you so much for that, Kaisha. I really appreciate your thoughts on that. Sheldon, my kid is fortunate enough to be at a relatively well-resourced city school that has a a big enough student body, i.e. funding, to allow school staff to have more focused roles. It's challenging enough for our teachers, but I wonder how smaller city schools manage. Any thoughts on how we might better support teachers in SEL in smaller and under-resourced city schools?
That's huge. And it is, you get so much per student. However, they have given some different money, extended day money. There's a lot of money that, I'm just privy to do a lot of things at my school. But there is additional funding to help the smaller schools based on the number of students that you have there. And sometimes not only that, just the schools just are given the money, right? I think really is talking to the principal and trying to put things in place, SEL things in place, things that stay. Don't just say, a lot of us are like, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, and we never really do. We never really train. We never really actually implement. And the goal is that, to have a staff member, that's willing and says, hey, I'll take on this. If I don't have an SEL coordinator at the school, to be able to take on that. And that's what they do. Like for instance, in the course that I teach right now, in the student wholeness course that I teach right now, we divided up the group by birth month, right? So that each group will have to do a calendar for that month, right? And then they'll take it back to their school. So when they finish the course, they'll have 12 months of SEL that they can do, with students and staff, right, at the school. And so that was something that you got just from taking my course. So there are tools and there are different courses out there for teachers to support them. That's just on the professional end. But I think also the district is doing things that trainings, right, to try to help you. The principals are bringing this back and they're putting people in charge to train teachers. So sometimes it's not just about money, it's about the ability to have people that want to actively engage. And not all teachers want to actively engage. You have to be honest about that too. Just, what I'm saying? And not all admin want to actively engage. And that's the truth. And that is what it is. But the goal is, how do you put it in to be positive and give that effort and, an ability to do that and want that. And I think that the difficult part is funding. And I definitely agree with you on that. But I think you want to overall build a perspective that is important and empathize. And I think there's a difference between empathy and sympathy. And we're at the empathy level where we want to empathize with others within our building, so that we can emotionally and intentionally support one another, whether that we have funding or whether we don't have funding.
Okay, so that's okay. Thank you. That's what we could do. We know that Dr. Santelice has introduced some wellness days for educators and a new day and a half break for teachers before Thanksgiving. It seemed like she is recognizing that teachers are struggling. Can you describe any of these struggles?
I think it's just when you walk across the threshold, you think about death every day, right? You think about getting COVID. You think about not being able to, take off or using your own leave. You know what I mean? I think some of it is you don't fully sometimes understand what is there for you. And I mean, like, can you take the days off? Is your leave charged? Just being consistent, everybody being on the same page. You know what I mean? Like, you can call your union rep, you can do these things. But at the end of the day, I think that it's nice that she recognized that, because it's very much needed. And I think the struggle is real. That's what I can say. The struggle is real for people trying to deal, just cope with the day to day. You know what I'm saying? Because you got kids popping off at you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think you've been at home 18 months, right? And you're on social media, right? So it's different from my time where I didn't have social media, where I picked up the phone, or where we fought with our hands, right? We didn't shoot one another, or we didn't stab one another, right? So you see the violence and the things that are coming around. But I think, not that I'm not answering your question, but I think all of this kind of plays into it, because the teachers are worried about these things too, right? You worried about them coming back in and doing something that's of negative nature, right? And that's highly stressful, because you see them just, you sucked on my shoe, and now they're just fighting in an all-out brawl. You know what I'm saying? And you're seeing it all over social media. So you also are worrying about, that's what got to stay off social media. And you're being asked to do things, right? And you don't have the ability to say no. The goal is, if it's too much for you, you have to think of self at some point and say no. Overall, you have to say no and learn how to say no. It's too much for you to take on. And I think as teachers, we always think of our students, we think of our families, we do this, we do that, and we never think about self. And we're in a time now where you have to think about self. You know what I mean? Like, bottom line is you must think about you and your wellness, right?
Yeah,
Because then you'll
self-care
be
is
homesick.
definitely important.
Hmm.
We talk about that a lot. Self-care, but I backed up and looked. I said, okay, because I hear people reference a lot that, and I'm not saying that crime may have not gotten worse, but I know when I grew up and everything, and I didn't grow up when we didn't have social media and stuff like that, but killing and gunplay and knife play was still very active and was very real. When I was growing up, even without it. Also, I want to acknowledge though another comment here. The fear of COVID is overwhelming for children, especially when they are told someone in your pod tested positive and you can't go to school. That happened to my granddaughter last week. She cried for 3 days straight, thinking she or one of her peers were going to die. Not
Huge.
that's not nice at all. Luckily, I could stay home with her, but we were told that I should have limited exposure to her because of my age. At the same time, she needed the hugs for comfort, but it was scary for her because her mom and her aunt still have to teach. Actually, my my granddaughter got her feelings hurt because she coughed and a child told her she had COVID. Wow. Yeah, I could imagine. I heard something like that before, Ms. Bonwell, where people were saying that, and that that was some things going on between kids and having these things. We have so with the days that Dr. Santelises have given now and the struggles, would you say that that is the right direction in helping, make sure I understand this question, that's the right direction and helping educators to deal with what's going on? Or do you think there needs to be more, or are there other thoughts that teachers are having to help them deal with what's going on now? Ms. Bennett, you would say.
I definitely think it's definitely the right direction. You know what I mean? Because you do need a mental health break, right?
Mhm.
And I think the good part is that your time is not charged. You may have that day at the end of the school year to make up, but at the end of the day, I mean, we may or may not at this point. But I definitely think that's definitely the right direction, um, to give some type of mental health self care break. Um, could be more done? Yeah, but I mean, we're still a school, you know what I'm saying? And you have to work, contract says you work 180 days. It is what it is, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's what we signed up for as teachers. But we didn't sign up to die. So there's a difference, right? I signed up to be safe. I signed up to teach students, you know what I'm saying? I signed up to live my very best life as a teacher. I didn't
Mhm.
sign up to go in and risk my life every day, right? I didn't sign up to be a police officer, right? Where I know I got
Right.
to carry a gun and I might be killed every day. That's not what I
Mhm.
signed up for. That's what my colleagues, they didn't sign up for that either, right? And you're in that situation, you know what I mean? So I think if you put yourself in a career that you know that's the outcome is death. I didn't put myself in a career where the outcome is death. Like, that's not what, can I die? Absolutely. But that's not what I set myself up to be. You know what I'm saying? That type of situation. I definitely think is, again, the right way to go, and I'm
Mhm.
glad that, she was able to embrace the fact that it's an issue, and she didn't have to embrace it. So that's the part that people say she don't like. Technically, we work 100 days. She doesn't owe us anything. I mean, to be honest, I mean, we can say whatever we want to say at the end of the day, but she didn't owe us that, and it was gracious enough that she had enough, you know, compassion to think about it, and whether it was her or the people around her saying that. And I think that it is a sense of compassion that she thought about us, because we're not in a good place. People are quitting, teachers are quitting, you know what I'm saying, because it's too much, right? So you're asked to take on all these things, and we talked about it earlier in the conversation from the onset, Tyrone, how it's
Mhm.
it's a lot, you know what I'm saying. You're dealing with way more workload under so much more pressure and stress than you've ever probably had in my career, you know what I'm saying? Of temple, like, what I've been at this game for like 16 years, you know what I mean? Plus, so you're looking at, plus, but in the district, 16 years. So I've been through a lot of CEOs in my career, you know what I mean? But I think that it's important that I feel grateful that she thought of, thought enough of my personal mental health to say it's okay. You understand what I'm saying? And let me give you these days to get your whole life together, right? And spend that
Mm-hmm.
time with your family and doing what makes you happy, and that you can put yourself in that space to be able to come back and deal with the difficulty that you have to deal with every day, or the stress that you have to deal with every day.
Every day. Got you. I know there are many other educators watching. So I asked along when I asked Miss Penn this next question, I asked that you would definitely also put your answers to this in the comment section, to this next question, and any of them. Actually, tell us how you think. What do you feel about the days that you all have gotten off and everything? And I'm going to make a bold comment here, and say, because it's how I feel. I do understand, you, Miss Penn, that you say, Dr. Santelisa's do not owe these things to educators. I feel different. I feel like, as the leader, the head,
Oh, don't get me wrong.
whatever.
I'm very grateful. I'm very
No, no, no,
grateful.
no, no. I get it. No, I am. We're grateful and thankful. I just personally feel like everything is so heightened, and it's evident that is people are really overwhelmed, right, and everything like that I just think that in certain cases some things should have happened with a more sense of urgency. So we've gotten these days now, and yes, we're grateful, but I just feel like they could have came a little earlier. And I also feel like there should be some type of modification made where it should be more, because the reality of it all is one day and a half a day and stuff like that. Like, it's okay. And again, being grateful and thankful for that, but it's so much more needed. So that leads me into my next question. And again, if others could answer this as well, and that is, what other supports would you say are needed for teachers and staff?
I would have to say this is one I think is really huge.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we realize it, that so many kids, so many families would not send their kids back to school, right? Um, I think we should have made our virtual school that we have in the district a little bit bigger, that accommodated more teachers and that accommodated more students, right? We should have really publicized it. A lot of teachers didn't even know that it was out there as an option, right? I think that we could have advertised and opened it up. I mean, Chief Davis sends out, emails regularly. Like, maybe that should have been in there to say, hey, we got these jobs for you, and this is an option. And then we have to understand we still have a lot of teachers that have pre-existing conditions, right? And that have other family issues, that are going on. Like, you may be taking care of a loved one or something like that. We still have some things that are going on. So maybe we should have expanded, to, instead of just taking, and I don't know what the real number of the school is. Like, some people said they were supposed to take 2,000. I mean, rumors and supposition is what it is at the end of the day. But
Mm-hmm.
that is 1,200. I don't know, because I don't work for the school. I work at a school. I think that you should have maybe thought about, like, the going in the second, because we have our attendance is low, not just at all schools across the district, right? So maybe consider this second half, maybe open it up some type the second semester, giving kids an opportunity if that's what they want to do, if they were passing, right? And I don't think that if I'm not going to school, then what's the point of me going virtual, right? And I'm not coming to the building and I'm not going to school, then I don't think there's any purpose, right? That's just my personal opinion, right? But to expand that, you know what I'm saying, and give people the opportunity and maybe advertise that a little bit more, because we get parents say, well, um, that, hey, I didn't know, you know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying I didn't know is acceptable, but at some point in time, you have to make a deadline, right? But just be
Mm-hmm.
consistent and fair on how you advertise it across the board. Let the criteria be known. If your child failed, then no, they can't go. I don't really know what the criteria is because I didn't research it. I'm just hypothetically saying, okay, Tyrone, if that's the criteria, right? But I would assume you would have had to been passing. This is just, I'm a teacher, so I'm assuming that you had to be
Right.
passing. But at the end of the day, that if you were passing, then we should have took a larger number of teachers and a larger number of students. You know what I mean? To be consistent across the board, right? One thing I consider the district has done is they have provided technology, but we were never 21st century ready, right?
Right.
Because we wouldn't even have to go through all the stuff that we're going through now if we were 21st century ready, if our buildings were 21st century ready. You know what I mean? I think that some of this is just systematic. You know what I mean? We talk about systematic racism. Well, here you go, you have it, right? If you read
Yep.
The Black Butterfly, You know what I'm saying? He talks about it. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is what we're dealing with, systematic racism. So at the end of the day, and that's what to me, it boils down to. We can sugarcoat it, cover it up, do whatever, but at the end of the day, that it is what it is, right? So if you have systems in place, you know what I mean, that are proactive rather than reactive, I feel like sometimes in our district, we're always reactive and not proactive, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how do we move forward and always, one thing I liked is that I saw that they were accepting teachers, I think education consultants, right? Do we have teachers on these when we're making these huge decisions, right? Do we have teachers on these panels providing feedback? You know what I'm saying? Not just one who may have unrealistic, right? We had a lot of teachers who wanted to go back into the building for whatever reason. We had a lot of teachers who did not want to go back into the building for whatever reason, right? And I get you have to make an executive decision that affects all, but I think you need to put systems in place and people in place, right? And have
Yeah.
conversations. And the district did have a lot of conversations, right? But do we know? But at the end of the day, people say a lot of things, right? And usually the people that show up to these meetings are the parents that are vocal, right? And not
Mm-hmm.
so much the parents that are not so vocal sometimes, right? We get those on Fox 45, okay? So at the end of the day, it's like you're looking at being proactive rather than reactive and putting systems in place
Yeah.
that work, that effectively work. You know what I'm
Effective.
saying?
That's listen.
That's the key. Effectively
That's
work.
the key. Effectively, right? Effective
Mhm.
systems that work in place. Let's go back. Thank you, Miss Penn. I want to acknowledge a couple of things. Thank you all those who are commenting and commenting and answering questions as well and input. Thank you so much. I am definitely going to acknowledge more that's out there as well. I heard from a teacher last week that she had been staying up till 3 a.m. to meet all the deadlines the district had. I know about SLPs, but what are these other deadlines? This was crazy to me. And before you tell me about those other deadlines, Ms. Penn, just keep that in mind. But I want to also acknowledge this comment about the question for what folks need. I'm happy with that time off right before Thanksgiving, but it would be nice not to have those days added to the end of the year. And also realistic timelines is with someone else, is with another educator put up there. And the response to that was, I wonder how parents can fight for these more realistic timelines. It seems like the union is trying, but not getting anywhere with that. So any thoughts on those few things, Miss Penn, and then I'll go down and get to something else.
So this time of the year, Tyrone, we have a lot of things to do. Our IDPs, we have that do. We have our SLOs. I know all these acronyms. You know what? And some of them I know the titles. Some of them I don't know the titles. Right? We have evaluations. There's a lot of things for teachers that this time of the year. Plus, we have testing. Remember, we came back into the building already testing, right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
so at the end of the day, there's so many deadlines and so many things that are due that are critical, and that all equate back to you being an effective teacher, right? An effective teacher equals dollars, right? So you have a lot of pressure to get that done. And the basically the SLPs, but what's really kind of good that's not been mentioned here is that our CEO did extend a lot of these deadlines for us, right? So that you wouldn't be bogged down. So some of these were extended.
But
And you
weren't
gotta
they?
understand.
From my sorry to cut you off. I know because we didn't get to yet. It's been there, but I've heard. But didn't the extension come like last minute, like when it was pretty much time for the stuff to be done, like a day or so right before it was done is when the extension came, or did the extension come, prior enough time to actually give people the room to know it was an extension?
Uh, I'm gonna go with the latter. I
Okay.
know you was almost done anyway, and then your extension came. So it kind of like freed you up to be prepared, rewrite, rethink, make additions to that. Be intentional with what you were doing, right? And that's what I would say, right? But yeah, they were kind of last minute. But you gotta understand, I think what my problem being a teacher in the district for a really long time is I don't think any of the departments chat. They don't chit chat, right? They can't possibly, because you would have, like, I do a lot of different jobs, right? And then it's like all those reports are all due in the same week. Like at some point in time, y'all need a master calendar of when you say things are due. I don't think that's hard. You understand what I'm saying? Like you may not be able to meet because of a lot going on, but you could have a master due date calendar. I don't think that's a hard ask. And people may have thought about it, maybe they didn't think about it. But like, don't make your stuff due the same day that we have something huge due, right? So you had SLPs due, you had SLOs due, you had IDPs due, right? That's a lot of dues, right? In the same week or two, give or take a couple weeks or a couple days, right? That's a lot to do, right? And it is on and on. You had to get ready, you're getting ready for evaluations. People are doing evaluations. So you're preparing for that because you want to be your best, right? You want to make sure you're meeting all the instructional framework T's. You know what I mean? Like, so I think at the end of the day, no departments talk. Some of them are by contract. So some of this is by contract. So you got to understand that too, right? So people say, oh, they should give us days in the mix at the end. At the end of the day, your contract says that you have to work 180 days. So when you say on the back end, yes, on the back end, she's giving it to you now, and she may be able to go, to ask, right? But you have to have a governor that's going to say, okay, that's awesome. We're not going to let them make it up. But contractually, as a teacher, you work 180 days. And what gets me is I'm on Facebook sometimes, I try not to go there, is people make comments and you don't understand your union contract, right? So some things are not realistic, right? So it can't happen because your contract says it can't happen, or it's in writing. You know what I'm saying? Like, so your contract says 180 days. Guess what? You have to work 180 days, right? But when you get a half a day, you don't have to make up a half a day. So that's why some of these days are half days, because you don't make up a half a day. As long as you come into the building, you're not making that day up, right? So when I give you a day off that's not on your schedule, because you have that 180 days, so you can't work 179 without somebody giving approval above our CEO saying that you can have that off. Does that make sense? So it's like a
no,
trickle
absolutely.
down. It's a trickle down again. You know what I'm saying? Yep. And so we make comments because we don't know, and ignorance is bliss. You know what I'm saying? Yep. That's why I say read that contract. Call, talk to your BR in your building. That's your building, your building rep from the union. Rep. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Talk to the person that's at the BTU. You know what I mean? Our union president has like weekly, monthly meetings, join educational issues. They have committees that you can join. I mean, I think there's something you can do to help yourself and educate yourself. And I'm not on anybody's side. You know what I mean? I think there's some awesome things. I think there's some things that suck. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, I'm a teacher, and I've been a teacher for a very long time. And that's all I know. So, but at the same time, I made it a point to learn the contract, and that it's extremely important that you learn your contract so that that what you're responsible for and what you're not. And I always see, people, send emails or say things. I'm like, you can't even do that. Like, that's not feasible. Or yeah, you can do that. And this is how you go about that. You know what I mean? I think that most schools have a union learning rep, a ULR, that can, answer questions and help you and tell you professional development and answer, different questions as it relates to the professional development end. But you have to know your resources. And I think that's really important, that we have all of our union resources in one space, that people, because how would I know that if I was a new teacher? I wouldn't know, right? So you need to have all of those. Now everybody knows it. Not everybody wants to join the union. And I get that too, because you want to pay union dues. It's like a double-edged sword, right?
Right,
but the union places all these things in one resource, kit and caboodle, where I can just say, oh, I have this issue. Like I was talking to a teacher at my school, they said they didn't know they could got tuition reimbursement. You know what I mean? But I said, I am the union learning rep at my school. You haven't been to any of my meetings. Have you read any of the emails I sent out? Well, no, I didn't think those were important. Well, that's the choice that you made. So at some point in time, we too have to be accountable as teachers and as individuals with information, right? And I'm not saying that we have the time, but because it's so much at the end of the day, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I could only imagine. I think, it's coming down on time. I want to definitely get out and say though, because I've seen a couple of folks say it, and I want to stress this point, that as a parent, and then I'm saying this from other parents, we knew that stresses that teachers were dealing with, dealing with kids and some other things, families and stuff like that. But when it comes down to certain deadlines and doing certain things, and we've had another educator that commented that special ed deadlines are a whole different kind of beast.
Oh yes,
it's a whole
I didn't even talk about that.
And so these are things, right? but these are things that parents do not know about. So when we talk about the work that we do, when we talk about building parent and teacher relationships and,
Mhm.
doing those kind of things, these things are important, because if we had more parents that had, I believe this with everything, if parents had that understanding or knew that, one, it will force some parents to do more, right?
Mhm.
To try to help out and do some things. I'm gonna just be there, whatever capacity that they could. But also just kind of to show that sympathy in a lot of cases when it comes down to certain things. But the fact is that we don't know these things, right? Like
Mhm.
we do not know these things. These things aren't made to us. So parents who are watching, do your due diligence and getting to know your kids, because I've said this, y'all know we've been on air for it's been a while now, going on 2 years, and consistently across the board from Parent Power Hour to Tyrone's house. I have said it. I've said this on panels when we were fighting for Kerwin and getting the Kerwin bill passed and everything. Most importantly is that our teachers are taken care of and are and good, because if they are, that means our babies will be taken care of. We can't expect for our kids to get the best when those who are in place to help them and teach them are not getting you know, are not getting the best themselves, because
Mhm.
they definitely should. If teachers were taken care of better and felt more respected and felt taken care of better. And like I said, I appreciate you, Ms. Penn, for acknowledging and being smart. And what you said, I'm not against it. You said everything right. Yes, you need to know your contract. You need to know these things and all of that stuff like that. Those things are true. So educators definitely take, and I know it's hard to say take the time, you have a lot, but educate yourselves on these things and know these things. And if there's room where parents can step in and help out, where you may not, or the union may not have it's not, let us know, right? Like, we have to work together, because with you all being taken care of and you getting what you need, it's not going to do anything. But Miss Delana has talked about it several times, the trickle down effect, right? Like, that's the trickle down effect right there for us. If our educators are taken care of, it's going to trickle down to our kids. Okay, and we'll see a difference. And so we need to be doing our part to make sure that they are getting what they need, and as much as possible. Listen, I'm gonna stand behind. I love, thank you, Dr. Sanselises, for acknowledging this. I still stand by what I said. That should have been done. This has been a different time and a different type of schooling for everybody across the board being in this pandemic. So I feel like, with it just coming up to November now, that should have been done. Mental health is real.
It
Mental
is
health is real.
absolutely.
And I know y'all have this contract, but let me tell you something. I done worked in government. I done been around here. It's ways of getting around contracts and implementing certain things and amending certain things.
Mhm.
And we need to figure out how that can be done, because with the stresses and everything that is going on right now, and teachers are heroes, and that should be recognized on a regular basis. And regularly, y'all should get a mental health day. It shouldn't be once a quarter. Hell, at least once a month. At least.
You know what? This is American Education Week too. Also, our teacher appreciation is something. It's one of those days. But also, understand this. Not to cut you off, but understand this. Right? Is that wellness is extremely important, and know that we have an IAP office as well, where you can
Mm-hmm.
get some of the assistance that you can get. And a lot of teachers don't know we have um, an employee assistance program where you can get help. You know what I mean? And it is anonymous through Beacon, so that is there for teachers as well. So that I just wanted to add that when you were talking about mental health, that
Mm-hmm.
I know like a lot of our, I teach the majority of the children that that in our schools, we were taught like what happens in the house stays in the house, and you don't talk about it. So we trickle that on generationally.
Yep.
But at some point in time, you must talk to someone so that you
Yep.
have a level, so that you can deal with it. You can deal with the trauma that you're experiencing. And that is extremely important, whether that's acupuncture or going to the chiropractor, whatever that is, so that we have that, those schools. But the district there are things in place to help us. You know what I'm saying? That you can. And I think it's about knowing that the things that are in place for us to be able to get the help that we
Yeah.
need. You know what I'm saying? And you know,
If
you
y'all
can get
don't know them, y'all please get to know them. Conscious and teachers, don't forget that we have 6 free therapy sessions that you can access almost
yes.
immediately. I use mine in February. That way we can sustain whatever we get out of those mental health days. So y'all please use your resources. I'm sorry, y'all. We are at the end of our time. We went over. Thank you so much, Ms. Penn, for being here with us. I'm pretty sure this conversation can carry on because, again, as much as we can hear from educators directly, right, and talk and say, so that parents can really get a better understanding of what it is, like we need to figure out how to have we need to have this again, right? And just kind of like focus on, no, thank you all, focus on, teachers' perspectives, right, of things and how things are going for them so that we can know as parents how better to support, because we don't know these things, right? Like we don't know them.
Absolutely, I agree with you on that. But get involved with the family community engagement. If you have a PTO or PTA at your school, you can talk to your community. If you have a community site coordinator at your school, talk to them. If your school has a social emotional learning coordinator at your school, talk to them. And I'm sure there's principals, there's teachers, talk to the teacher. You know what I mean? I know sometimes they're busy, they don't, but they have coach class once a week that you can come to. A lot of teachers stay after school every day, so they're in the building. You know what I mean? And a lot of them do outside of what their normal day is. They do,
Yep.
intramurals, or they do like a club, or they do something else. Ask them what their schedule is, and you can still meet with them. And
Yep.
before, always get the whole story before you go and jump. You know what I'm saying? Because sometimes little Johnny be wrong, or he can tell the story right. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. That
And
could
you
be.
know what I
Yep.
mean? I think another part is, praise the effort. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And if you praise the effort, it goes a long way. And that's not just for teachers, that's for students too. You know what I mean? Sometimes we don't praise the effort. We basically praise the ability of the child. Praise the effort. They may have gotten a D minus, but you know what? They might have went in the last test with an F. So
Yep.
praise the effort that they put into that. You know what I mean? We talk
Absolutely.
about, you know what I mean? Have conversations, you know what I mean, with your kids to help build relationships and strengthen your communication that you have with your student.
Yep.
Sometimes we have hours lecture, lecture less, you know what I mean? And just ask, more questions, conversation starters.
Thank you. Thank you so much, y'all. Join us on Thursday for Parent Power Hour. For Parent Chat at Tyrone's house. That's the space of parents. I don't know, Ms. Penn, what your schedule is like on Thursdays. And I know you already have a lot going on. But we do have parents that I would absolutely love. Well, actually, this Thursday is a little different, but another Thursday I would love to set up where we can have some educators come out and just have a discussion between parents and educators, right there, so that people can see and get a better understanding and hearing these things. So I'm definitely going to be setting it up for a Thursday. You all, we are not here on next Monday. We are off next Monday because of the Thanksgiving holiday and those things. Kaisha, you down? Thank you, Miss Edwards. I love it. I love seeing that. I love that. Educators jumping out there.
Oh, look at
I know I
parent
had some.
cafes. Some schools
Huh?
have parent cafes. Some schools have parent cafes
Yeah,
too.
parent cafes is one thing. And I'm not against parent cafes. Parent cafes are fine and great. And if that's what you can get into and that's what you like, then by
So
all
be it.
means join those and do those. I like more organic things, me
Mhm.
personally. Okay, this is just me, and I know other parents that like things to be able to be more organic and not necessarily framed out by other people, right?
Mhm.
And you know what I'm saying? So I'm not
I
down
got
in
you.
parent cafes, and it worked for some people, but for those who it may not and does not want to seem like things are set up, we can do things organically
Mhm.
right here, because I think there have to be multiple spaces for parents and teachers anyway, because everybody's style isn't going to fit into,
Correct.
what I'm saying, the parent cafe, what I'm
Plenty
saying,
of
this, that, or
resources.
the other. So but anyway, again, y'all, we over, and unfortunately, I have to run and take my rental back so I don't get fined more, and I still don't have a car. So I have to go. Thank you again, Ms. Penn, so much for being here. We will definitely be catching up with you again, y'all, and fam. See y'all on Thursday.
Thank you.